Hello, everyone, and welcome to your super fun welcome to being involved in NuTV, also called an NuTV story. What you're watching was a montage video that we made about 5 years ago because no one bothered to make a montage video since of what we did that year. I'll now show you a quick montage video of kind of what we've done over the last 10 years, but again up to 5 years ago because no one's made a montage video since. But it gives you a kind of nice broad variety of what we have done over that time. Oh no, what I'll do is actually I'll tell you what we're going to say first. I made this PowerPoint 5 years ago as well, can you tell? So you're going to meet the management team today. You're going to learn about what NuTV is and does, learn a bit more about how we run, watch some of our old, better content, get a feel of what we do, and learn how to get involved, which is the main reason why you're all here. And that hopefully all equals fun. Cool. So yeah, that was a couple of years back, a bit older than 10 now. Hopefully we'll get another montage video out. I think of what, that was 2017, so we're what, 14 now. So if you're here next year, I'll be here for the big 15. So that's something to look forward to. This is your management team. That's me, as you can obviously tell. And I'm the station manager, so my role essentially just involves kind of overseeing the entire station, running the admin, kind of dictating the station's direction, and doing outreach, getting involved with the other branches, getting involved with other organisations that we're affiliated with or have connections to. So you saw in one of the previous videos, we're a NUSU affiliate. We've been for some time. I was one of the trustees for a couple of years. Jack at the back is currently a trustee. An exec. So we've got a notable voice within the National Student Television Association, which is going to be helpful. And I'll remember to plug at the end for the conference, because I think you can still buy tickets for that if you're wanting to go. Okay, I'll do a plug on that on the end, or Jack will remind me if I forget. And we also have some degrees of connections with the Royal Television Society. Jack, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, can I just put it that way? So you tell me you like the picture, I hate it, and yes, so we're going to jump through it. Hi guys, yeah, so my name's Jack Train, I'm a production manager for NUTV. This is my second year in the role. My main role basically is to work with Harris, but I'm more sort of hands-on guy. So if you guys are coming on shoots, if you're doing a bit of filming with us, if you want to get involved in presenting, anything like that, I'll be the main point of call. Also, as Harris will talk to you later on about what an EP is and what an executive producer does, essentially if you do get involved to that level, you'll be coming to me, I'll essentially helping you out, I'll be giving you training and coaching on how to develop your skills a bit further. As I mentioned, I'm also a NUSU Executive Technical Officer. I'm also a trustee of NUSU. Essentially what that means is basically most of the student televisions in the UK are affiliated to NUSU, and then that acts as a charity and the overall body to give us a bit of voice as a collective together. Miles?
Yeah, I don't know where you sat down. This is clearly leading in a progression of myself, Jack, and you.
I'm Miles. This year I'm the Deputy Production Manager. I've been involved quite a bit over the past few years. I was like the Station Manager last year and such, but I'm basically here to help Jack and Harris to produce things, get all the things up and running, whatever you guys want to do, the shows and stuff that we cover. Got loads of different things, loads of fun things, loads of interesting things that can be do, such as news stuff and covering all the activities and events and I don't know, brilliant little things that go on, and they're always great. So, yeah, thanks.
We also have two other positions that are currently vacant. So this is the marketing team, and hopefully one of you lucky people will come on to either of these roles. So we need someone to fulfill the role of communications manager, essentially manages all the emails, social media, session output, so kind of they basically maneuver the actual visible side of the station, dictate a lot of the kind of comms policy and things around that. We work closely with the branding manager, so that's why I sort of consider them as a marketing team. And branding manager works more on kind of creating graphics, both for internal use, but also for our broadcast. Carson, who was our branding manager last year, isn't dead. He's gone to Hong Kong. But to me, it's the same thing because he's become suddenly very inaccessible. Created these amazing graphics which made our channel look super great. Hopefully we can resurrect him from Hong Kong, and he will hand over, a belated handover of everything he developed tech-wise last year. But if you look at our live output from the last 12 months, you'll see the increase in the kind of professional and quality of our on-screen graphics, and that was all down to his brilliance. So hopefully he'll be able to hand over what he actually did for someone else who can then take over from that. But you're managing the brand of the station, make sure it's all consistent. Shows need to have their own identity, but also need to be identifiably NUTV, and it's going to be a job of the brand manager to do that. So we'll probably talk about in a couple of weeks' time about an election, probably too early now because we'll get you into the actual station feel first. But if these are something you're interested in, especially if you're from a media and culture school, so if you're doing something in this kind of field, excellent kind of actual field work for those areas. So what is NUTV? NUTV is a student-led TV station at Newcastle University, and along with the Courier and NSR, it's part of the award-winning student media at NUSU. So as I mentioned, we've been running since 2007, and we've basically grown and waned over the years as people get interested, people don't get interested. But we've become crucially more vital in recent years because of the live event coverage that we do for the union, for the university, and that's helped put us on the map more, which also increases some of the opportunities that we can offer. We're hoping, we're building on this for a couple of years, and hopefully under George's direction, this is the year we'll hopefully increase more collaborativeness, so we have a more united student media, but also our unique identities, and hopefully that will all kind of feed in itself, and you have opportunities left, right, and centre. So by all means, please get involved in the Courier and NSR if you're not already. I've been involved in all three. I'm the gaming sub-editor this year. I've been part of the NSR management in previous years, and I'm involved in it this year as well as in some capacity I will be anyway. And it's always good. Journalism, media, broadcast, it's all multimedia. So if you can't really stick with one or the other if you're wanting to make a career out of this. Obviously, you don't have to be part, I should mention, you don't have to be part of NUTV. If you're not a Mac student, you don't have to be part, is that right? You don't have to be a Mac student to be part of NUTV. You don't have to want to do it as a career. If you want to do it just as a hobby, just as something on the side, that's perfectly fine as well. When I ran NUTV during my undergrad, I was a computer scientist. I'm now a Mac postgrad, but that's like after many, many years.
Is that a good point for me to jump in now?
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah. All right. As Harry said, hello everyone. I'm George, and I'm editor of the Courier this year. So while I'm not directly on the NUTV committee with these guys, I do kind of assist all the student media. So yeah, we've got the Courier, NSR, and NUTV. We've got the Courier, NSR, and NUTV, and as Harris was alluding to, you don't have to be a media and culture student to join in, and you don't have to pay a membership because none of us are societies. So it's all free to join in and free to kind of get involved. And I might be maybe touching on some things that Harris is going to cover later, but we have student media afternoons this year, which is where the Courier, NSR, and NUTV will all be present. And basically that's just a point where you can get involved in any branch of student media, see the entirety of what's on offer in a particular time frame, basically. So you saw a big list of NUTV shows that are kind of either currently operating or maybe lying dormant. If you want to resurrect one of those shows or maybe bring in some of your own ideas and start a new show, those student media afternoons could be a good point to maybe drum up interest and maybe say, someone is wanting to work on this, would you like to be involved? So basically, just bear that in mind. Feel free to come along on Wednesdays to see what else student media has to offer. But also, use it as something to kind of drive interest in projects that you're wanting to, pursue. There we go. But yeah, that's basically it from me, and I'll hand it over to Harris once more.
Thank you. And yeah, the great thing about being a membership is the commitment is basically what you want to put into it. Like none of what I'm about to go into, it might sound daunting when I talk about different roles, different kind of show commitments, and I'll have a slide about later on that goes into what I mean exactly by commitment. But with all three branches, because there's no membership, you don't have to like commit to one and do just that for a period of time. You can jump very fluidly between others, and that's kind of what we want to encourage people to do, so they get like the best out of everything. So the aims of NUTV are twofold. One, to produce student-created content of professional quality for the audience of Newcastle University students, staff, alumni, students nationally, and members of the public, both local and further afield. And also to give you guys experience, skills, discipline, and industrial connections if you do want to take this into a career or develop that skill. So we want to make sure the content we make is good, but that's beneficial to you as well. We won't just say, oh, we'll publish this and not give you any feedback. If something is bad, we won't publish it, but we'll tell you why. We'll hopefully get you to improve on that and then get something that's more publishable, because you want to be proud of the content you make. You want people to be able to watch it, and what encourages viewership is obviously good content. So obviously don't be offended if you ever make something and we say, no, not right now because of the quality, but that's the same for across the different branches of student media. If you write something for the Courier, you'll get feedback. It might not be publishable at that time, but it'll be at a later date. And that's obviously because we also do operate as a media station. We want to make sure the content is reflective of the quality that we want to achieve. But that's, like I said, beneficial to you guys to actually hear where things can be improved on. Right, so I'll be blunt here, guys. I mentioned earlier about NUTV over the years waning and waxing. And we're currently, I can't remember which one waning, which one waxing is, but whichever one is the lower one, that's the one. That's where we're at the moment. And most of that is to do with COVID, essentially. And this has hit a lot of small stations around the country. Last year, when I was still a trustee of NASTA, it was something that was often talked about, of how COVID has impacted. And a lot of stations had to basically either just rely on pre-existing content, or some even stopped producing stuff at all. We were hit kind of hard. We weren't able to produce many pre-recorded content. We were able to do some live stuff. And this is kind of actually where NUTV kind of excelled, is that we were able to use the opportunity to essentially develop a hybrid studio setup. So if you go back and watch, I might show you bits of it after this if we have time, but if you go back and watch our election coverage and our media awards coverage, a lot of kind of work went into that to basically accommodate people taking part in the awards ceremony and the elections virtually. And a lot of that was built on NUTV tech, and now we have that tech and that setup built. Going forward, we can do things like having news shows where presenters are talking to guests from other parts of the country, which we couldn't do before because we never had the opportunity to develop it. But it does mean that, obviously, you guys are pretty much, as it stands, NUTV and no one else, because recruitment was pretty much non-existent. With no opportunities, there was no reason for people to really stick around. But we also have managed to put the funds that we didn't put into producing shows into producing a lot of kit. Like this microphone is basically brand new. We didn't have wireless mics. Hopefully it's working. If it's not, we'll find out after this. But this is brand new. This is obviously going to make things so much easier for various shows that we do and various live output. So in a sense, it's a very good time to get involved in NUTV and shape it to what you guys want, because we're working on a more or less rebooted canvas, is a good way to put it. So I'm going to actually move this mic over way so I actually can see what I'm talking about. So in the past, and what the kind of montage videos kind of represented is how we used to run NUTV. We had a variety of shows of a different kind of genres and different kind of briefs. And each show had an executive producer who basically committed to running that show and control of the creative direction of that show. And then you had a team of producers, camera operators, and editors who would either stick to one show or move between shows as they want. And that was fine for a few years, but what often became the case was we had too many members and not enough equipment to support it, and it kind of had issues from time to time. I think there was a year, 2016, that worked fantastically. We had shows producing content like every week, every 2 weeks throughout the year. It was great. And then for various reasons, that kind of trailed off. It wasn't sustainable. Right now, we have too much equipment and not enough members. So the solution that we're putting in place for this year is we're going to downscale production, focus on a few shows, make sure we have those running reliably at good content, and everyone's actually getting involved in stuff, and then build on that. Essentially, we're building a station from its foundations up, and hopefully that'll be a more secure ground, so even if something else hits the station in 6 months, a year's time, we know we can fall back on this and always have things being produced. So executive producers is what we basically need to recruit to kind of push content coming out. And in the past, we had executive producers per show. They would report to a department director who would oversee a branch of shows. The department director would report to the production managers. And that's basically how it used to run. Executive producing isn't scary. It might sound like you're having put a lot of work on your shoulders to oversee an entire show. But ideally, how it should work is you have ideas, you have a direction, and then you consult with your team, who then help you with the bulk of the work. So the more reliable a team you have around you, the more shared the workload is, and it should be that easy. And if you don't have a supportive team, well, that's part of the reason why we're downscaling, is so we have enough people to make those supportive teams. That was kind of the reason why some of the shows started off strong and then filtered off after a few episodes. So hopefully we'll be able to give you the better experience of having an actual team around you, so you can actually concentrate on making content for a long period of time rather than one or two great stuff and then it kind of triples off. So essentially what we're doing is we're getting rid of the department director role and we're combining with executive producer. So because I have so few shows, executive producer will kind of manage a few shows, and I'll talk a bit about which shows they're going to be. But they will work with the production managers. Because it'll be too much to expect the production managers to do all the shows, but it'll be too much to expect you to do it all on your own. So the nice balance is they'll basically be co-running it with you, but they'll be co-running all of your shows, and then you'll be focusing on just your one or two shows. Then we have a kind of a nice balance of responsibility, a nice balance of focus. And then basically what a producer is in this mix is that they will sign up to do individual episodes. So that can be individual episodes of your show, or they'll do one episode of your show and go do another episode of another show. But they'll focus on just finding a team for that episode, and that means that you're not having to micromanage. That's what we want to avoid, and that's what you should avoid in all aspects of life. Really, micromanaging is a massive pain. Don't do it. I've learned that the hard way. So the more you can kind of delegate, and delegate is different from throwing responsibility, but the more you can pass on individual things, because focusing on a giant picture is a lot of work in itself, the easier kind of the whole thing is. But we will have workshops and more detail about how this does. So if you've never project managed, if you've project managed before, you're probably already like 3/4 of the way there, and all you need to learn is how NuTV does it. If you've never project managed, great way to learn is to throw yourself into it, but we're also in workshops, which is going to be, leadership is very individual, so it'll probably be a case of one of us three or all of us together will give you our kind of tips about how to lead a project, but then the important thing is for you to take that and make it your own. So this is kind of the shows we're going to run this year. So we're going to have shows around news and current affairs, and this is going to come in two parts. I'm going to do a weekly, I won't do this for ages, but a weekly NUTV news show, and it'll be a very simple 15-minute weekly live broadcast, hopefully in collaboration with NuTV, Korea News and NSR News. The idea being that, people who research stories for a written piece can take that research they've done and translate it very easily to NuTV, and then NuTV can pass back footage that is nice embedded onto the website, which increases more views. Everyone's happy. And same thing with NSR as well. Get their researchers, get their presenters. They've already written a script to just bring it to TV. So that's hopefully the plan there. And then we also have Student Council, which is essentially our version of BBC Parliament, just not 24 hours, but it runs the exact same way. You have static camera setups that record a room and people speaking. We've done this for a few years now. It's where most of our live output is involved in, so you can watch from our latest council outputs and see what we kind of do in that respect. But yeah, so that's one area we're going to focus on. Spotlight. So this is basically covering student activities, so societies and clubs. In my mind, we'll start off doing this fortnightly, but if we get a good momentum going, we can do it weekly, and then we'll basically have like a short feature. And we usually focus on short format in NuTV, so apart from our live coverages, which can go anything from 2 hours for council to about 8 hours for fight night. Apart from our live coverage, most of our content is short form, and so we're aiming for something between a minute and 4. Anything longer than that, it's not really kind of, people don't tend to want to watch things longer than 4 minutes on YouTube, unless you've already got that established kind of, niche. But most popular things you watch online, if they're long, they would have started off shorter. I think Cinema Sins is a good example of this. It used to be like under 5 minutes, and now they do things which are like 20 minutes long, but that's because they started off small. Which also means there's not much footage that you have to record to do something. Entertainment, we don't actually have, or rather I do actually have an idea for this. So this is a good opportunity for someone to kind of suggest something either today, after the meeting finishes, or after the fact. We used to have a successful show which you saw footage of called Big Market Banter, which when we went to town on like a Wednesday night and basically just talked to people who were slightly inebriated and recorded antics. But interest in that kind of waved, and so I cancelled it 2 years ago because it wasn't really getting the same momentum. Things which are more successful, and also things which are more likely to be shared by university and shared by the students' union, because as amusing as inebriated students are, it's not really a good optic. Things like challenges, cooking shows, talk shows. So it's like we have like 2 shows called Make a Guess. There's one called Make a Guess and there's one called another one, Blind Date, I think it was. But basically we get 2 students in like on a desk and have some sort of challenge. Make a Guess was all about blindfolding them and giving them objects, but it doesn't have to be that, it could be anything else. But it's the same kind of thing that BBC Three online does a lot of things of, where they get 2 people to sit at a desk and like either ask them questions or get them to talk about certain subjects or get them to do kind of short challenges. Those are good, those can get a lot of reach as well. Cooking shows, we've occasionally done, we've had I think 2 in the last bunch of years, but they do very well because some students like to cook. I don't. I'm too lazy and too busy for that, but others apparently do. And that can get a lot of reach. And again, it's the kind of thing that university and union would like to share. And talk shows. We've had some film talk shows, and that's obviously a very easy subject to kind of go around, but anything else, essentially. So if any of these inspire you, obviously, like I said, we don't want to have too many, or we won't be able to green light too many ideas to start off with because we want to downscale. But if you think you can get a team around you about an idea, we'll go ahead with it. Live events and sport coverage. So I'll do live, you can jump in the sport, that makes sense. So live events is basically what our kind of main output has been for the last couple of years. We used to be more on the on-demand content and a bit of live, but we kind of resurrected our live stream rig when I came on board 5 or 6 years ago, and that's grown and grown and grown, and a lot of our views coming from our live coverage. And so it crossovers quite a bit with all the other kind of genres and types of shows that I've talked about, and sport, which I'll hand over to Jack in a second, around. So this will definitely be a thing where I will work with other people to do live coverage, because I'm the executive producer of live output. I have been for some time. I'm going to be that role in this year. But if you want to get involved in kind of the tech side of live output, so that's distinct, I guess, from the content side of live output, because you can get involved in doing live shows but not worry about the tech side, or you can get involved in the tech side but not worry about the creative side. So if you want to learn more about sort of live studio, TV tech, this is kind of what you want to branch into, and we'll teach you how to basically use that, which is called Mega 2, because it's an improvement on Megatron, which was a massive mess, and I can show you the remains of Megatron if you want to see it later on, but it was like the worst. It was basically a custom-built rig on a T-trolley, which is putting it very politely. But yeah, do you want to talk about sport, Jack?
Yeah. So obviously live events and sport has a lot of connections. Harry's kind of giving you an overview what live events are about. Sport tends to be a bit more defined in what we cover. We're not having to make scripts up, we're just basically covering whatever the event is. We have got quite a few sports teams interested in getting involved with us. Guys like ice hockey and a few more of those sort of defined sort of sporting events. What we do on there is just going to be a lot more, because I'm actually EP on sports. We're going to do a lot more there, sort of interview-based stuff, and then obviously live coverage of the actual event. We've also got Fight Night, which is a big successful thing. It's been going on for about 8 years now, is it?
Same year I joined, so about 7 years ago. Yeah.
7 years. So Fight Night's been going on for 7 years. It's a big event with Newcastle University Boxing Club, who also get Northumberland involved. If you guys have been down to Fight Night before, basically it's a ring, 2 guys batting it out, massive sort of event. What we get involved in, we live stream it onto YouTube, we live stream it onto Facebook Live as well. We get some interviews, we get NSR involved and get them to comment on the event. I can't even talk at this moment in time, I've got a really bad cold. But that's sort of stuff we get involved, guys. With sport, it's a lot more defined. It's also it's sometimes a bit easier to... Sorry, Harris. I've had a protest, it's fine.
Heard that before.
Okay. So what was I up to? So with sport and stuff, it's a lot more defined what we cover, but it's also quite a good area for you guys to get involved in. If you may be thinking, I'd want to get involved in TV, I just don't know where to start off with. Because sport is kind of the area that you know what you're covering from day one. Everyone's seen the football on TV. We're not replicating it, we're doing our own style on it, but we also know what we're going to be able to cover during it. Pass that to you.
And then we occasionally get asked to cover things for third-party organisations. I know Jack has a couple of opportunities that he'll mention on the teams to talk about later on how to join. So he'll list a couple of opportunities that we've got coming up. But some organisations like what we do and ask us to do some coverage. It's not our main output because we're not here to work for other people. But if we're drawing opportunities or it looks interesting, we do occasionally take up those things as well. So to summarise our needs, we're going to need executive producers for news and current affairs, entertainment and sport. Like I said, there'll be some crossover and that's fine. In fact, that's encouraged. So it means you can help each other out on certain things. Ideally, shows should have regular outputs, but we will help you to kind of develop this and schedule this and ultimately kind of push this. But the more consistent your schedule is for any particular show or output, the more the metrics like it and tend to push it to more viewers. That's why we kind of like to, if something is sparse but regular, that's better than a quick burst of like 4 episodes and nothing for like the rest of that term, for example. Everyone else, if you're not interested in the leadership role of executive producer, if you're just here to kind of learn crew roles or develop crew roles, essentially these are kind of the main ones that we tend to have. It's usually the first 3 or even the first 2. I'll talk a bit more about why that is in a second. But if you want to do any of these roles, how I mentioned before, you don't need to commit to a show. You can just say, this is the roles I'm interested in. The executive producers or the producers will be like, I'm filming a show in a couple of days' time. I need these people who do these roles. I'll explain the teams in a bit. But they'll be able to tag what the roles they need, and that'll reflect on that'll ping your account. And then you can be like, yep, I'm free, I can get involved in this. Typically, we get camera operators is what we tend to get a lot of in NuTV, which is obviously great, and you need a camera operator to film a show. We tend to have less people willing to get involved in the creative side, so producers and writers. And you can see the problem there, because it's great having those people wanting to film something, but if you've got no one actually developing the creative ideas, then you've got nothing to film. So we're definitely trying to encourage people to get involved in that side of TV as well. And it's great if you're not interested in kind of the tech side, you just want to get involved creatively or like directing or producing, absolutely make that known, because we lack a lot of, we definitely lack writers. Very few of our shows are ever scripted. And I'm not talking about scripts in terms of like fictional shows, just in terms of, factual or news is written, factual shows are written. Even if it's a case of bullet points where you write the beats of a show. Every show, factual or not, has a narrative to it, but most of the times you don't actually do that, and that's a good way to get involved behind the scenes and develop that craft. Editors, kind of, again, increases and decreases several years. It's a hard skill to jump into because the creative side of editing, you can't really teach, you kind of learn. It's your individual style, and you get that by practicing and doing things. Tech side is easy to learn, but editing is a very time-consuming hobby to learn, and so we want to give people opportunities to learn, but it's also find people who actually want to get involved in that side as well. And we've never had anyone get involved with production design. I don't think people don't tend to connect design, like physical space design, with TV, but it's absolutely something we can make the most of. I love this building to bits, but the walls are frankly drab, and you can tell that in a lot of our footage. It's just against a blank wall and it looks terrible. What can often make something difference between something looking low quality and high quality on camera is how you alter the space. Like, I've been to other student TV stations where they have basically a corner no bigger than my desk there, but on camera it looks fantastic because they've built the space right, they've put nice colors at the background, they've created a sense of depth. So if you're interested in that, if you know anyone who hasn't considered NuTV, but they do things like art or architecture or whatever, and they're interested in kind of putting that into a TV context, don't have to touch a camera, don't have to touch a computer, don't have to touch a script, but it's very important. So we're trying to increase that kind of area of NuTV as well. So yeah, always get involved. I have mentioned already, front camera work. We rarely get enough people wanting to present. There seems to be a vast majority of people who do camera work are camera shy, which is hilarious, but also I guess understandable. If you're so used to being on that side of the lens, you know what it's like to be the subject, and you kind of want to avoid that. So there's very few people who actually do camera work and also want to present. So we definitely want people to present. If you know people, especially those who are very outgoing, who do a lot of public speaking, do a lot of comedy, who want to do in front of camera work, absolutely encourage them to join NuTV as well, because especially as we do more news content, more punditry, more kind of sport commentary. We need people who actually are comfortable talking in front of a camera. Mentioned before, marketing. If you're not interested in going for one of those manager marketing roles, what will help the people who do eventually get those roles have a team who they can basically share workload with. Because I think in the past years, especially with Carson, bless him, again, he's not dead, but bless him anyway, did a lot of the stuff himself, and if he had a team, it would have made things much easier when we had shows basically going live in a couple of days' time and he was, neck deep in his coursework. Whereas if he had a team, he could have passed on knowledge, and hopefully someone would have been here this year who would be able to share that knowledge as well. Again, hopefully we can reach out to him in Hong Kong, and he'll be able to pass it on blatantly. But if you're interested in kind of marketing, social media, communication, get involved that way. Graphics as well, between me and you, Carson. I mentioned set design in the previous one. Researchers and writers as well, such things like news, factual documentary, things like that. And transcribers, we're going to try and create a voluntary position within Go Volunteer. This was discussed last year. I've not had a chance to chase it up yet. But if any of you guys have free time and want to kind of volunteer, we want to make our videos accessible. And for them to be accessible, they need to be transcribed. Because most of our stuff isn't written content, you can't just copy and paste a script over, because someone needs to write a script. It's a very time-consuming process, but it's very important to us at NUTV. It's very important to the union that our content is accessible. In previous years, in recent years, there's been a giant push for that to happen. And as a disabled student myself, I'm absolutely keen for that to be a thing, but I'm also very aware it's a very time-consuming process. So if there's something you have spare time to do, let me know, and we'll talk about how we can make that happen. Otherwise, hopefully we can advertise that out through Go Volunteer, but that's something I'm very keen for. So yeah, I mentioned commitment earlier. I mentioned a lot of what I mentioned here earlier, but this is something I say to like everyone ready to volunteer for me in various projects, be it NUTV or society or freshers or whatever. You can put as little as much into the station as you can and want to. There's no obligation to get involved and then stick to this and do nothing else. I don't want you to do that. I want you to get the most out of your student experience. But all I ask in return is that if you do commit to something, you either honour that or you give whoever is your project's lead enough notice to find someone else. Because there have been cases in the past where people just don't turn up, and that's the worst thing you can do, because unlike writing for the Courier or presenting for the radio, TV is very much a team project. You cannot make an episode on your own. That's what makes it difficult to make a lot of content for NUTV, because you need a group of people to make just one episode. But that's why if one person disappears, it doesn't do what they said they're going to do, it can have a massive role and effect to everything else. So dropping out's fine. Your academic commitments are more important than this TV station. I'm a hypocrite for saying that, because I never put academic commitments above the station. But they are more important. But you need to basically tell someone that you can't do something, then they can figure out a way to work around that. With executive producers, there's a bit more commitment, because you're expected to oversee a project for a longer duration of time, but the same things here apply. If you need more help, if you know you're going to have a period of time where you can't do as much, you let us know and we can work around that, no problem. Just don't disappear off face of the earth. I'll skip that because there's an old episode, and if I have time at the end, I'll just go into our channel, but you can find our channel yourself and look at recent content. So this is basically summarizing every and all ways you can get involved with our station. I'll post these slides on the Teams, which I'll mention again at the end. But yeah, those are essentially everything. So yeah, next step. So first, like and subscribe to our content, because it's ridiculous how people get involved in stuff at NUSU and don't actually, follow the things they make. I have been part of clubs and societies where people on the committee don't actually like the committee page, and it's a bit awkward for you. But definitely like and subscribe to our content. To join our team site, you can do that now onwards. If you haven't used Teams before, it's not. It might seem new, but really it's no different from a combination of Facebook and an instant messenger. It works kind of the same way. It's a bit more organized because you can split things by subject headings, etc. But there's multiple ways to join the teams. If you just go into Team, if you download the app, or if you go at home and go onto the desktop app and type in that code, you'll join automatically. If you scan this QR code, which I've seen a whole bunch of you do already, which is great, you get added to our kind of welcome interest list, and in a couple of days' time, I'll send the email to that list with this code, so you can all kind of get the information as well. But if you jot down that code, that's basically all you need to be added to our comms. When you join our teams, the first thing you'll see is the general page. There'll be a short introduction there which basically explains what I'm about to tell you here. But there is a form in that group where you basically say, I'm interested in this area, this area, this area. Those are by no means a commitment. It's just so I know what to add to your record in the teams. So then if someone says, I want a producer, you get notified automatically. You can always change that. You can always decide later on you want to do more, you want to be interested in more things. You can tick everything and get notified by everything. It doesn't mean you have to then do everything, but it means you get notified. So if you're someone who isn't sure which area of TV you want to get involved in, by all means tick all the boxes, and then you'll see opportunities as they get thrown out, and then you'll be able to kind of then say you want to do this and this. And then once we have show leads, so executive producers, and we've had a meeting with executive producers, they'll start posting out show opportunities, need crew for this, crew for that. You sign up to that, you basically say, I'm free, and that's basically how the station works. We're going to be running workshops to look out for announcements on those. So there's channels in the Teams group that are called like announcements and opportunities. Make sure you turn on notifications for those. There's information in Teams about how to turn on notifications. So when we run workshops and stuff, you'll be able to get involved in that. And we'll hopefully do a whole bunch of socials, both individually and collaborating with student media as a whole as well. Coming, and hopefully I'll see you all in the Teams very soon, and we'll be able to make shows, content. But yeah, thank you.